Tonight, Israel's arms industry is booming. Are Arab countries behind its record sales? And Sudan's deadly battle kills its governor, with no end in sight. Later in the show, an uplifting story about a church destroyed by Hurricane Fiona and their plan to build affordable housing units on their property.
But this is so important for the greater community that it could help to provide for this huge need of affordable housing.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I am Sami Sayed. Israel's arms sales are hitting an all-time high. The country's defense ministry says last year there were $12.5 billion worth of arms sales. The ministry says in a statement the sales have more than doubled in the past 9 years. In the last 3 years, the sales have jumped by 50%. The ministry says the Russian war on Ukraine has increased European demand for Israeli-made weapons. It says the jump in sales also comes from Arab countries who have normalized deals with Israel 3 years ago in 2020. These countries include the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. These 4 countries signed US-sponsored agreements to normalize relations with Israel. Since normalization with Israel, Israeli arms exports to these Arab nations have reached $3 billion. The exports include drone systems, missiles and air defense systems, radar systems, electronic warfare systems, and cyber intelligence systems. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the president of the United Arab Emirates, has met with Vladimir Putin in Russia. The visit is unusual because Russia has been isolated in the international arena by Western countries due to its invasion of Ukraine. Al-Nahyan discussed the conflict on the sidelines of an economic forum. He called for stronger diplomatic ties between their 2 countries. Al-Nahyan told Putin he is willing to build on this relationship. The UAE is among the few countries maintaining a neutral stance towards Russia. It has not sanctioned Russia like its other allies, including the US and the EU. Al-Nahyan showed support for de-escalation and political solution to the war in Ukraine. The United Nations is calling for the killers of a state governor in Sudan to be held to account. It says the paramilitary forces holding the late governor had been responsible for his safety. The governor of West Darfur State, Hamis Abdullah Abakar, was killed on Wednesday. It was only hours after he made remarks critical of the paramilitaries. He had made these comments in a telephone interview with a Saudi TV channel. The death toll from 2 months of fighting between Sudan's regular forces and paramilitary rapid support forces has topped 2,000. The violence has driven 2.2 million people from their homes. Canada will host the 9th round of the 2023 Formula One World Championship this weekend. The Canadian Grand Prix will run this Sunday over 70 laps at Montreal Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. This is just over 4 kilometers. Red Bull Racing's Dutch driver Max Verstappen is dominating this season's championship, winning 5 Grand Prix. His nearest rival is Mexican Sergio Perez, who was victorious in 2 races. The 6th round was canceled due to serious flooding that hit northern Italy. Please stay tuned, and we will be back after a short break. Affordable housing is an issue throughout most of Canada, Even in Charlottetown, where the population of about 40,000 people shows a housing crisis dating back to 2014, with housing construction slowing down, leading to a massive shortfall and units becoming a bit too expensive. One religious community in Charlottetown is attempting to be part of the solution by building affordable housing units on church property. To learn more about this, I'd like to welcome Associate Pastor Brody McLeod from the Calvary Church to the show. Welcome, Pastor, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. As I've mentioned, Pastor, these housing units will be built on church land. And this is a really commendable effort, but I'm just wondering, how did all of this come to be?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's not something that we had ever even considered until we were faced with difficulty and issues as well. Um, and we, of course, along with so many others in our region, suffered from some damage, some significant damage from the Fiona tropical storm, post-tropical storm Fiona, that really did so much damage, and especially in the area where our church is located, and it tore things up. And end result of our church being written off by our insurance company, and then us needing to determine what our next steps would be. And that's where it started, because we were left with such great uncertainty about what to do with our resources being as limited as they were. We weren't sure how we were going to have another place of worship, another meeting place for our church family. So that's where it started from.
Mhm. And what is the plan now? What does it look like right now?
Sure. So, of course, going forward from there, we had to kind of sort through the different options. You know, we've got options to rebuild, options to try to fix the building that was there, but none of that was working out. And then we were presented with an option, an opportunity by a developer out of Ontario, based in Toronto, BGI Group. They came and they talked about a affordable housing complex that would be built alongside the church building, so that we would have a worship center that would go towards rebuilding and having a place for us to worship together and minister as a church. But also, what enabled us to build that would be these apartment buildings, 50% of which would be for affordable housing, fall under the CMHC's guidelines and parameters for affordable housing. So we began to go down that road with that developer and explore that further then.
Mhm. Now, I mentioned that there is a housing crisis going on in PEI, and from what I've heard, your religious community has actually seen the effects of this crisis right on your land. Can you describe what that looks like and why you need affordable housing?
Oh, absolutely. Anybody familiar? And I mean, it's across the country, as we know, but even here with our local news and our local newspaper or our local newscast, top one or two stories leading the newscast each day is our housing crisis. Back before the storm took place, we had some unhoused people kind of taking up residence and finding a spot to put down literal tent pegs and living in a tent just off of our land and right near the church. And they would come over, use our showers, use our electricity to charge up phones and whatnot. And we did whatever we could to help them with some grocery cards, help them out as we were able. And then when the storm took place, we further continued our involvement with the on-house community and worked with them in helping to provide some kind of bridge uh, support through some food, some helping with some generators right after the storm, as they were building or coming together in what they call Tent City in Charlottetown, and they had generators that we were able to loan them, and we got a furnace in there that they were able to put together to bring heat, because we're getting into October. That was the end of September where the storm started, or the storm hit, and into October, getting cold weather coming. And so we were trying our best to help along those ways with people that didn't have a place to call their own.
Mhm. So now you'll have a new church being built, plus about 400 new units.
That's right. Yes.
And how unconventional is this approach, to essentially use religious space to create new facilities for the community?
Yeah, it certainly would be a different paradigm, but not a completely new paradigm, or a new way of doing things that's never been done anywhere before. We have seen it done with some success in other places, and we're looking at those models and learning from them, and wanting to see how we can best provide for the need here, because we have a great need as a church family, that we found ourselves without a meeting space. And when this opportunity was presented to us, we just couldn't help but be struck by how not only does this meet our need, because we're looking for a place to meet together, but this is so important for the greater community, that it could help to provide for this huge need of affordable housing that is, it's
Mhm.
a major factor in our community.
That's what I was wondering as well. In order to build all these housing units, you're going to have to give up a significant amount of space for your church, basically for other purposes. And I was wondering, how does your community feel about that?
So the church community.
Yes, of course.
Sure. Yeah, we're working through and talking through how this is all going to look, and of course, having the developer provide us with some drawings and some sketches of the footprint of where these buildings will be situated on the land, is helpful for us to see how it's all going to come about. Because as you say, when you hear these large numbers, and we know that the space that we have to work with, the automatic question is, how's all this going to fit there? And of course, this is where the architects, the builders, they come into play and help to bring that about. But there is definitely going to be space that is used up, but so much of that space has been unused or underutilized at the very least. And now we'll be able to use it on a everyday basis, because there'll be housing on that space that will impact the community for the good.
Now, we don't have too much time left, but I do want to know, this project is still very much in its earlier stages. What
Absolutely.
comes next?
So right now, there's a proposal into the city of Charlottetown, and we've been in touch with a couple of city councilors to try to get things moving a little quicker. And we're hoping to hear back sooner than we have. It was submitted April 27th, and now just this week, in fact, we've heard from some city councilors who want to get behind this, because they're seeing the benefit. They are seeing the potential benefit of this proposal. So they want to see the wheels in motion. So that's what needs to happen next. The city needs to approve the plan, and that may take some time, come back and say they need to change this or alter that. And we certainly willing to work with the city as our developer is. And then we'll bring it to our membership, and the church membership will vote and make that final say of getting the shovels in the ground
And then it just goes,
seeing
it
that
takes
come to
off
pass.
from there. Yeah, exactly.
That's
Well, thank you so much, Pastor McLeod, for joining us today and telling us more about this amazing project. And we can't wait to see what will come out of it. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
us too. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and share with you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Sound Vision is a not-for-profit organization that produces this program, and we need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit our website www.muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so that we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.